Come on, TV, give me some of that sweet, sweet pep.
Sega TV!
Sit right, we bring you.
Hello Marvel Legends, it's time once again to go back for another Marvel Legends Legacy review. And who's on the docket today? It is the son of Wolverine, Daken. Now this is a character who I'm instantly quite a big fan of. As soon as he was introduced and they started to flesh out his character and his backstory, I was like, okay, I like where we're going with this. So the problem with recounting the origin and the history of Daken is that there's a lot going on. So this is a character who was first introduced in Wolverine Origins. And you know what? We need to set the scene. So let's just dive into the way back machine and find out what was going on when this character was first introduced. So in March of 2007, the #1 film at the box office was Hot Fuzz, the absolutely fantastic second installment to the Cornetto trilogy. And over on the small screen in the UK, Louise Redknapp presented a controversial ITV documentary, The Truth About Size Zero. Why am I mentioning such an obscure TV show? Just because Louise was my first ever high school celebrity crush. I mean, isn't she a flower? The #1 single at the time was a re-release of 500 Miles by The Proclaimers, everyone's favourite drunken sing-along song. And #1 in the album charts were the Kaiser Chiefs with their album Your Truly Angry Mob, featuring the hit song Ruby 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 Ruby. The main game on the consoles at the time, at least in my experience in March of 2007, was God of War 2. And in the world of pro wrestling, the WWE Championship was held by John Cena, again. Over in TNA, Christian was holding the top strap, and over in New Japan Pro Wrestling, the absolutely amazing Hiroshi Tanahashi, or Tanahashi Hiroshi, was holding the IWGP Heavyweight title. Alright, so the scene is set. We know when Daken first appeared, but now it's time to think about what this character is all about. So, alright. Doing a bit of research, I thought he was the son of Wolverine and Mariko Yoshida, and that was kind of why he ended up orphaned. But that's not the case. Wolverine has had other liaisons and whatnot in Japan, which is hardly surprising. I mean, he's over 100 years old and he's been around for a long time. I'm surprised there aren't more Wolverine offspring out there. I'm sure there probably are, but we can only account for so many. Daken, I think, was actually the first Wolverine prodigy? What word am I trying to think of? Help me out here.
Progeny, Dave. It was progeny.
The first Wolverine child, basically, is what I'm trying to say. The first official one in the 616. And he carried a lot of baggage. Too much baggage, in fact. The entire Wolverine Origins miniseries or ongoing, whatever you want to call it, maxi series that he was introduced in is so convoluted. It's not bad, and the artwork by Steve Dillon is awesome. But the problem is they just keep heaping layer upon layer upon layer onto this character and onto Wolverine's history as well. It's so overly complicated. But essentially, Wolverine sires this child, and then he's out of the picture, and then Daken's mother is then assassinated by the Winter Soldier, hence him popping up here. And he cuts Daken out of her womb, and then Daken is discovered and adopted by a Japanese family, and they name him something else. But he develops the nickname Daken, or Daken, it's supposed to be pronounced Daken, which just reminds me of like a metal band from the 80s called Dokken, but either way. And he grows up to be a bit of a psychopath, basically. And the name Daken or Daken is the nickname that he's given because it means like mongrel dog, which obviously he eventually sort of took on as kind of a badge of honor and an FU. He owns it. But the character was first introduced, like many popular villains who become heroes, or at least anti-heroes. He was introduced as an absolute absolute psychopath, like a card-carrying Looney Tune who, he kills his father, and I think like his mother dies in the kerfuffle. Because that is quite a kerfuffle when you murder your parents. And, he's very similar to Wolverine with his abilities, except just because, got to shake it up a little bit. He has 2 claws on top of his hands, and he has a third claw which comes out underneath his hand, which doesn't seem like very useful. You can't really slash with an upside down claw. It's just like stabby, but it's just to mix things up. But he also has pheromones. He can release these pheromones which can manipulate people and, bring on emotions and attraction and this and that, which is kind of a cool sort of additional power. Kind of like Prince Sizor from Shadows of the Empire, if anyone is familiar with Star Wars Shadows of the Empire. It's a similar kind of pheromone kind of thing. So, long story short, he sets out to, destroy Wolverine's life, as, sons are off to do. But eventually he gets foiled and he goes off on his own doing his own thing. And that's where the character gets far more interesting, because they have a mini-series with Daken where he goes to LA and tries to take over crime organizations and things in LA, in Hollywood. And that's really interesting because that fleshes out his sexuality as well. This is one of the first major Marvel comic book characters who is pansexual, and there's been other characters that they've kind of referenced or hinted at, like said maybe Deadpool is pansexual or somewhere on that kind of rainbow spectrum, that alphabet spectrum, if you will. But Daken's one of the first characters who they openly have as this character, and he has relationships with men and women, and he uses his sexuality very overtly to kind of get what he wants. He's still a full card-carrying psychopath, and it seems that he only really uses his sexuality purely to get what he wants. He just doesn't care who it is that he's romantically manipulating. But it's a fun added element, and you get these sort of extra scenes and context and dynamics that you wouldn't get with sort of regular. I don't want to say regular, because you can't say regular or not regular, because it implies that something is abnormal. That's a whole bunch of weeds I don't want to get dragged down into. But basically, he has some interesting dynamics as a character, and he uses his sexuality in fun kind of ways. Like there's a wonderful scene where in the heat of battle he kisses Bullseye just to kind of focus him and just kind of throw him off his game, which is kind of amusing. But either way, that's a lot. That's like a soupçon. That's a tiny little smidgen of the character's actual backstory and what goes into this. It's so convoluted with layers upon layers. He's been killed off and brought back. Wolverine killed him once, and then he was brought back by the Apocalypse twins, and they've really softened his character because he has become more popular, and they want to integrate him more with sort of the mainstream 616 characters and have him not just be a villain. So he's not quite a full-on sociopath like he was before. You can kind of they haven't retconned some of the awful things he's done. They're just kind of we'll forget about those. We'll sweep those under the sociopath rug. But now he's kind of here in the regular sort of Marvel continuity, doing his thing. His most famous time that I really enjoyed was when, as is represented here with this costume, he posed as Wolverine in Norman Osborn's Dark Avengers, which the way Osborn sold it to him to do this role was simply, it's really going to piss off your dad. And that's kind of fun. And the character has evolved since then. So he's not just so focused on sort of destroying his father's legacy. He actually has come around to take some reverence to it. So it's an interesting kind of character evolution. But look, we've been going for 7 minutes and I've barely even touched on the figure. So the figure, as you can see, is an older Hasbro figure. Is it Hasbro or Toy Biz? Have they changed over? I'm going to roll the dice and say Hasbro. Correct me if I'm wrong. And as I said with Yellow Jacket, he has the Sideshow Bob super long feet because he has the foot, the toe pivot. Is it a pivot? It's not a toe pivot. It's a toe hinge. He has ankle pivot, which is great. So he's very, very poseable, but it does make his feet look rather big, kind of like flippers. But what I do like about this figure, everything is nicely kind of proportioned. You see, he's got the ball jointed hips, which thankfully are a thing of the past, but they don't stand out too much. His head, kind of like as I was saying with the Bucky cap, it's quite a narrow head. I feel it's not sort of the right kind of proportions, I think, but it's good enough. Like it's not a huge detriment to the figure. I just feel like it could have been a little bit different. What I would like to have is the alternate head, which they have a maskless Daken head with his mohawk and whatnot, and that looks really cool. So if I could find that sometime, that would be awesome. More to the point though, we need an updated Hasbro Daken. That's what I really want to see, is a new version of this character with all the modern body mold, all that kind of thing. Now, some points that I really don't like are the claws. Look at these huge, big, thick, stalactite claws they're round and misshapen and just weird. I mean, Wolverine claws on a Wolverine character are often going to be a bit odd. Like, we've got Cowboy Logan here, and these ones look a lot better. They're not very straight. I need to play around with these, but you know, they are supposed to be just bone under there, whereas these are just like, they look like, I don't know, like squirty cream. Someone just went and just put some claws on there. They look bad, is what I'm saying. And not only that, but that's two claws on each hand accounted for. Where are the under claws? Where are the claws that pop out from the underside of his forearms? They're just not there. Now, when he was posing with the Dark X-Men, you can sort of appreciate he didn't pop those out because he didn't want to destroy the Wolverine aura. But come on, son. Come on. That's just the manufacturers, I'm going to say Hasbro, being lazy and going, nah, we'll just do the two claws. You're lacking, and that's a big thing to be lacking. A nice little thing is the belt is a separate piece that's not actually molded on there. It actually sits like a belt, which is kind of cool. And now something else we have to address, the elephant in the room. The tribal tattoos. You can tell this character was introduced in the mid-2000s, can't you? Because the late 90s, early 2000s, boy, tribal tattoos were all the rage. And this is coming from someone who, I have to confess, does have some early 2000s tribal tattoos. Hey, it was a time. it was a time in our lives that we lived through, and some of us still bear them. You know what? I like my tattoo, though. I think it's kind of badass still. Anyway, the Daken figure has the tattoos, which actually I'm really pleased about, because it does distinguish the character, and you know, it's some extra paintwork which was actually done very nicely. They captured that pretty well. Now, I haven't read any recent Daken comics, so I'm not sure if he still has the tattoos on his arms. I hope that he doesn't, because he's been resurrected from the dead. So what, did he go and get the tattoos again? I don't know why he would, because again, my tribal tattoo, badass. The full arm sleeve tribal tattoo, it's kind of went out with Limp Bizkit, but either way. So, in conclusion, this figure is a good figure. He's not great, and he is desperately in need of an upgrade. We need a new Daken, and I would love to see that. So this figure gets one thumb up, because I do like it. This gets a thumbs up from me, but it's not a double thumbs up, because there's more that can be done, and more to the point, it just makes me want to think, when are we going to get a new one? That's what I want to see. But before we go, let's do a little bit of a figure comparison.
So here we have Daken looking lean and mean right there, and here he is with his dad, the brown suit Wolverine. So you get a little comparison, the much brighter colours on the new Hasbro figures there. And here is Daken next to the Winter Soldier, who of course was integral in his origin. And you can see also here that Daken's claws are kind of like coming together. They're kind of bendy. Again, one of the reasons I had to put him lower on the list than I otherwise might have. And here's Daken next to the Rider Punisher. Why have I put these two together? Because Daken was responsible for murdering the Punisher at one point, literally cutting him up into pieces. Of course, this then led to the mixed responses of the Frankencastle storyline. And here's Daken next to his more casual-looking dad, the Cowboy Logan. And finally, for no other reason than it's fun to do, here are all the figures side by side.
And finally, to wrap things up, let's take a look at where Daken ranks on the Legends Legacy ranking. Okay, on the Legends Legacy ranking list, I'm not going to put this figure too high, but I do like the figure. But in fairness, it's just, he doesn't have too much going for him being an older figure, and I feel that the claws really kind of, they hinder the look, they do. So I do want to put him in a section of figures that I genuinely like as opposed to dislike. So that means that he does go above Boomerang, but then already Yellow Jacket, a very similar body mold, I'm gonna put him below Yellow Jacket because I feel his claws, his big, chunky, weird ice cream cone claws really put him down. So even though I do like this figure, I'm going to put him one below Yellow Jacket at number 23. And there you go. That's not a bad ranking for a character that is very much showing his age. You know, he's got some city miles on him, but he still fits with modern Marvel Legends. You know, I still have him displayed very proudly with my Dark Avengers, but I would love to update my Dark Avengers with a modern Daken. That's what I really want to see. And now, folks, to wrap up this little segment here, I want to present to you my favorite part of these videos that I do. It is the gallery of all the amazing work that I found on Instagram. Not just photography of figures, but cosplay, artwork. Like, the more I search for cool stuff, the more insanely amazing talent I find. So guys, if you like some of the pictures you see, and of course you will, duh, then go and check out the Instagram creators. Their IDs are, I make sure that they're displayed with the pictures. Guys, I love what you folks are doing out there. Keep on doing what you're doing. And until next time, keep displaying model behavior.
There's a whole lot more coming.
The biggest unanswered question is where is the
There's
money?
a whole lot more coming.
The biggest unanswered question is where is the
There's a
money?
whole lot more coming.
Where is the money? The biggest unanswered question is where is the
There's a
money?
whole lot more coming.
The biggest unanswered question is where is the money? Where is the money?
Choose.